Greetings, everybody, and welcome to PopStream, the shiny new streaming channel from your friends at Pop Culture Classroom and Denver Pop Culture Con, where your community comes together to talk about your media because this is your PopStream. I'm your host, Matt Slater, and I'm thrilled to be bringing you episode 1 of the PopStream Workshop, the once monthly PopStream show where professionals from the community are going to conduct demos and workshops to help you build your skills. So whether you're looking to become a professional in the arts or trying to find a new hobby, or maybe just looking for local artists and organizations to support, the PopStream Workshop is the place to be. And joining me for every episode of the PopStream Workshop is the magnificent man behind all of your favorite convention panels, Mr. Bruce McIntosh. Bruce, how you doing today?
I'm doing great. I thought you were referring to someone else all of a second.
No, that's you, dude.
Magnificent. Okay.
Yeah, Bruce, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay, I am the programming director for Denver Pop Culture Con when we get to eventually have it. And meanwhile, we're producing things like this to keep everybody excited and into their pop culture faves. My history is I've been doing this for 10 years. Before that, besides some other jobs that are a lot less interesting, I've been doing the con for 10 years. Before that, I wrote articles and a book about comic characters and their origins and in the past and their histories. And so I've been pretty much steeped in comics for most of my life.
Nice. And, you know, we're going to learn lots of fun things about Bruce as we go on. But I'm just saying, if you find Bruce on IMDb, he is there. So go check him out. So this is still a new channel. Let me give you a rundown. PopStream is coming at you every week with a collection of 4 rotating weekly shows. So last week, we kicked things off with episode 1 of PopStream Comics, where you got to know myself and the PopStream Comics cast, and we talked all about the Umbrella Academy. And this week, we're continuing with episode 1 of the PopStream Workshop. And then over the next 2 weeks, you can look forward to episode 1 of the PopStream AV Club, all about film, TV, and video games. And then episode 1 of Denver Pop Culture Con Flashback, where Bruce and I are going to highlight some of the very best panels from Denver Pop Culture Con's past. And then the next week, it's going to start all over again. So you get brand new episodes of PopStream Comics, the PopStream Workshop, AV Club, and Denver Pop Culture Con Flashback. So PopStream is live every week at 4 p.m. on Thursdays on our own YouTube and Twitch channels, as well as the Pop Culture Classroom and Denver Pop Culture Con YouTube, Twitch, and social media channels. So if you're watching live, you actually get to join the conversation via the chat. So no matter what platform you're on, drop a comment and say hi to us. And in fact, in today's episode, live viewers get a very special opportunity to be a part of the show, as our guest Dustin, who we'll introduce in just a second, will be taking live recommendations from the chat to include in his demonstration of how to create unconventional superheroes. So please look forward to that later in the show and get some ideas ready. But if you can't tune in live, that's fine too. You can always catch up with episodes on demand on YouTube. And as of today, we are available on podcast services. So if you'd prefer to listen to us while you're going through the drive-thru or while you're at the gym, you can find us by searching PopStream on Spotify and Stitcher. And we will be coming soon to other podcast services such as Apple Podcasts and Google Podcasts. But that's enough about the show itself. I want to dive into it because today we have an awesome guest with us. So we are joined by artist and Denver Pop Culture Con alum, Dustin Resch. Dustin, how are you doing today?
I'm great. How are you guys?
I'm awesome. I'm so glad to have you here. You've got some awesome artwork. If you're listening to the audio, Dustin has some really great artwork behind him that I hope you guys can find on YouTube later. But Dustin, why don't you go ahead and tell us just a little bit about yourself? Who are you? What do we need to know?
For all this audio audience, I'm going to be drawing as loud as I can, just so that you hear some
We'll narrate
in the drive-through. So yeah, I'm born and raised in Denver. I ended up finishing school out on the plains out in Bennett, Colorado, and came back to civilization after. But I've been doing graphic design, web design for many, many, many years, but I've been wanting to get all the way into art the whole time. So I went to animation school in Denver at the at the Art Institute when it existed, and got an animation degree. I hate animating, and turned out that that's where I found out I loved illustrating.
Okay.
Concept art and storyboards and things like that.
But it took the degree to realize that animation was not
the
future for you.
I loved all the instructors I had. It was totally worth it. I ended up going back and teaching there for a while too, which is what got me to go and pursue grad school. And I ended up doing that master's in children's book illustration, because that's my big dream, is to tell stories of my own and to illustrate. So some of the stuff that you guys are seeing behind me, and I'll show you a little bit more.
Which, by the way, Ainsley on YouTube says those pictures are awesome.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so I'm still trying to get my first agent, get my first publisher. I self-published a book long ago that I'm not showing anybody, and but I've been working hard in the industry, and then going to workshops and conferences and things like that, networking. But yeah, I've also I do a lot of portraits and superhero stuff, which is why what I've been doing at the con all these years. I missed the first year, but I've been an exhibitor every year since then. And I really missed it this year, it turned out. Like I missed all the people coming up and talking to me while I draw then. So this is going to feel like an hour of sitting in my booth. It's going to be great.
I mean, that's why we're here. We're trying to have those conversations, right? And reach out to that audience and still engage everybody. So I want to know, and Bruce wants to know lots of things about you too. Let's kick it off to you, Bruce. How do we pick his brain first? And by pick your brain, I do see that brain bandana you got there. That's awesome.
Well, he tempted me now to ask him about what his favorite sport is.
So yeah, if you weren't, before we went live, we were talking about how this may not be our sports audience. So yeah, Dustin, what is your favorite sport?
It's just throwing up my hands and giving people my lunch money. That's the whole thing. Honestly, in school, I forced the school to allow a letter in Knowledge Bowl. So trivia is my sport.
Awesome.
Knowing stuff is my only sport. I do a little taekwondo, but not on an athletic level. Just on it, trying to, stretch out and not fall down.
I really miss geeks who drink. Do you ever do that?
Absolutely. Yeah. Geek Bowl is become a real big thing. I got on a team. I've been to the last two, that's Geeks Who Drinks national competition.
Right.
And I've gotten really involved in the trivia podcast community, and I've done 30 something episodes, like competitive episodes of those. And so it's a huge group of my friends are involved in that. And I see them. We got to do one Geeks Who Drink Geek Bowl this year. And when they introduced it on stage, they said, "Welcome to America's final public gathering," because it was the end of February. We were just finding out about COVID. And that's the last time any of us saw a human ever again.
Yeah, I felt that way at C2E2 in Chicago. That was like, this is the last one for a long time.
Yeah, this is in Chicago too, actually. It was fantastic. But yeah.
Bruce, have you ever done Geeks Who Drink?
We used to do it when we first started the con. That's kind of how we got out into the public and told everybody about, we were there and you should come and you should be part of this too. And that's where we got a lot of our artists in Artist Valley.
Nice.
Let's get a team together when we can. Let's go back out and do that.
Yeah.
So Dustin, what kind of art do you do? Because behind you, I see a lot of different styles of artwork. What would you say is your wheelhouse?
I've done a lot of training in portrait and caricature, which is what got me started on all the stuff that I do and sell at the cons. So humans are my favorite thing, and then animals. But I also I'm obsessed with the ocean, always have been, and so I've got one of my children's books is about an octopus that I actually like. It's a true story of a thing that happened on my first night dive down in Cozumel. I think he's off screen the way that the boxes work, but I'll make sure you see him
cute.
later. So yeah, my children's book stuff, I've got books about robots and octopus, and I've got other ideas about sharks and things and children and
robots and octopuses together.
Maybe, Godzilla and Mechagodzilla came together eventually. That wasn't the plan. They ran out of ideas and made a robot one, but you never know.
Does your children's book have a shared universe?
I think so. I could see there becoming a Dustin cinematic universe eventually.
Ooh, I like that.
That's a little farther than I've actually thought ahead, though.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I was going to mention that you mentioned the variety, and he's very, you're very versatile, Dustin. I'm seeing not only humans, but the comic-y characters and the caricatures. Are all the things on the wall behind you? I know we'll go into it in more depth later, but are all those on sale on your website, or can we go to your website and buy those things, those prints?
Most of them. The Conan O'Brien here, I can't sell. That's one that I did that got on the show, and I had to sign up some rights to it for them to use it. That's a whole cool story that I don't have time to tell today, but it ended up being shown on the show, and then they used it for a gallery show in New York, and they did a 14-foot tall version of that drawing.
That's awesome.
On the front doors of the Time Warner building. Yeah, that's been 9 years ago, and nothing nearly that cool has happened to me since. And I'm trying.
I think that might even be one of the photos of you that we used to promote. Was you looking at? It was a mural, right?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
It was right across those windows, and yeah, I show that one a lot. Most of the stuff is for sale somewhere. I'm just now starting to put some of the children's book art up on shirts and products and things like that. But there's a lot of the Marvel stuff that I do and Star Wars and things like that. I've got for sale up on my TeePublic, but then once in a while, the lawyer brigade comes through and takes down a bunch of things. So I can't promise all of it's up there because some of it had some ceases and desists, but
well, that's okay, because our chat has a lot of new ideas for you. They're all about this Octobot idea. They want an octopus robot. And then Scott on YouTube says in quotes, "Does this story follow Resch canon?" Which I really like the sound of.
I like that too.
Right, get that cinematic universe in there. So speaking of cons, before we kind of get into the demo, what has been, whether it's at Denver, we know you've been at Denver Pop Culture Con. What other shows have you exhibited at other shows?
Just a few. I did Emerald City 5 or 6 years ago in Seattle. And then a couple of years ago, I did Dallas and Kansas City and Denver all in the same year, which
Oh,
turns
wow.
out I have a full-time job and I was going to school at the time, and that almost killed me having 3 shows. And I've got friends that do 30 a year, like con carnies.
So what has been your like favorite con experience? What's like one thing that stands out as whether it's an awesome fan interaction or something crazy you saw? What's been your favorite con experience?
The funniest one I'm not going to tell you about yet because it's part of the slideshow I got coming up.
Okay.
But my first year, I got invited to do a panel like on digital art versus traditional art. That ended up being a lot of fun. There was there were a couple of traditional artists that were real well established that came in gunning for the stylist people, and they weren't ready for somebody that was ready to argue, and ended up being a really fun and lively panel. I had a blast at that. I'm also I'll tend to do portraits of the people that are going to be guests at that show.
Yeah.
And so I've gotten to meet and get autographs from a lot of the David Tennant here was because he was going to be here this year. So that actually did that as a class assignment, but it was specifically because I was going to meet him and get that signed.
That's excellent.
And
like bring it up to him at the autograph booth.
This one that's here on my shirt, I got Dave Bautista to sign last year. And anyway, so getting to meet a lot of the celebrities that I've drawn has been fantastic. My whole living room is covered in autographed portraits of pop culture people, and that's been fantastic.
Bruce, are we taking notes for future pop culture ideas?
Absolutely. I was going to ask about the Kaylee from Firefly. Jewel 8. Is that why you drew that one?
That's one that I want to complete the set. So I've gotten now autographs from Alan Tudyk, Jewel State, Marina Baccarin, Nathan Fillion on 2 different things because I did a Dr. Horrible drawing of him also and had him sign both of those. And let's see, Ron Glass is gone, but I'd like to complete that cast as much as I can eventually.
Awesome.
Gina Torres and Adam Baldwin are the 2 main cast members I don't have yet. And
that's
I just blanked on that. And I got Summer Glau too. I did get her signed. I'm blanking on Simon's actor's name now, but he's also on the list that I don't have yet.
I'm obsessed right now with Alan Tudyk in the Harley Quinn show, the animated Harley Quinn show, because he's Clayface and the Joker, and he just does such a phenomenal job.
And back there.
Yeah.
Oh, nice. Yeah, that's a great role too. I just finished watching, and I think this is a great nerd thing that probably doesn't have a lot of attention. It's on Hulu now. It's Dirk Gently's Holistic Detective Agency as a show. Have you seen it?
No.
It's fantastic. It's not really based on the books at all, other than the spirit and kind of the general, like, it's hard to explain. They went completely off script in a great way. So there's 2 seasons that are both nuts. The second one, Alan Tudyk is kind of one of the main bad guys in it, and he's so weird and so terrifying, and it's just so cool seeing how much he can adapt to that kind of thing.
Yeah.
We saw him at Reno Pop Culture Con, and he impersonated his chicken voice from Moana, which was phenomenal. It was one of the coolest things I've seen on that stage.
Just seeing that come out of a human would be unreal.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Dustin, we've got you here for a workshop and a demo, and I know you've got some cool stuff. And if you're watching live, don't forget that later on, you will have an opportunity to influence Dustin's drawing and give him suggestions on how to create an unconventional superhero. But Dustin, I think you've got an unconventional superhero that you've kind of already created. So why don't you tell us about what you got and show off this new character?
I will. Let me start the screen share.
And then, of course, we got Liz behind the scenes. Liz is making this whole show work. So if we're having any audio issues or if you notice anything like that live, let us know and Liz can get that fixed. And she is going to make Dustin's art look amazing. Shout out to Liz.
Come on, little iPad, you can do it. Okay. Is everybody seeing my iPad screen? It looks like it, right?
I can see it. Whether our viewers can see it, that's another question. But it looks like they can.
Excellent. Okay, so I'm going to start just with a quick slideshow to get the origin story out of the way. So this is a kind of a sample of the children's book illustration stuff that I've got. This top center one, I actually did the sketch of it in the ocean while scuba diving, and that's something I would love to come and do a whole show about sometime. That I'm trying to pioneer dive drawing
So was it
body.
digital and you had it like in a
No,
waterproof case, or-
plastic slate with an actual graphite pencil for the sketch part, and then
Huh.
on the plane home from St. Lucia, I was using this iPad and I did the painting version. I've got a YouTube time lapse of the whole thing.
That's
that we
amazing.
we
Where can
link to
people
later.
find that?
On YouTube on my Resha Sketch channel, but I'll make sure that we. That's the,
Kudos on locking that name down. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, so that's something I want to do lots more of. But let's see. I'm trying to use the mouse on the iPad. Let's keep these things straight. And then this is more of a sample of the stuff that I usually do for the cons, right? The traditional superheroes. So when you guys were asking me about, the unusual superheroes, I'm thinking, how do we go in a really different direction from these guys? And I was talking to my group of my children's book friends. I'll have critique group meetings, and we were brainstorming about what would be a good unconventional superhero. And we decided that a child version of me might be a funny one to do because I'm the opposite of a superhero.
What do you mean by that?
I'm about to tell you. So I was saying that I managed to get a letter in trivia in high school. That's what this the picture on the right is from my freshman yearbook from our Knowledge Bowl team. That by my senior year I ended up taking to state. We were a very small school, and it was a big deal to get that far. Yeah, my superpower art isn't in my top couple because that's not something that I'm naturally good at all. I was a really good student, and for example, in high school, I got straight A's in everything but art and gym. So
Okay.
specifically, spelling is my biggest superpower. It's something that I don't even know why I'm good at it, but I just always have been. So the Spellcaster that you talked about is going to come from that part of my background.
As a former first grade teacher, having an innate spelling ability is pretty incredible. Like I'm not sure where that could come from, having taught, phonics and those concepts, but that's awesome.
Yeah, this drawing right here is my dad teaching me how to read when I think I wasn't 2 yet when he was doing this. He would write words on these blocks of wood, and if I could read all 4 sides, then I get to throw the wood in the fire. That was my prize, which I think is going to be part of this character's origin story, like how that gets converted into magic, right?
Parents, take note. That's awesome.
Right. So for my tragic origin story, my character's going to end up being younger than this, but in 8th grade was my last year of eligibility. I finally made it to the state spelling bee, and I was so ready for nationals at that point. Like I was studied up. I knew all my roots, and then I got the dumbest word I've ever heard of being in a spelling bee dropped on me, and it knocked me out. And I've drawn some pictures for therapy. And I got what is basically a Batman sound effect as a word. I didn't get sphygmomanometer or onomatopoeia. I got womp.
Aardvark.
I got womp from a guy with a southern accent and a mush mouth, and I couldn't tell what vowel he was saying, no matter how he defined it, how he pronounced it, how he used it in a sentence. And so as you can see from the banner, that was 33 years ago, and I legitimately still can't talk about it without getting angry.
I can't even, what does that word even mean? How do you use that in a sentence?
It's the sound of something being dropped. One is the sound of something being dropped, and the other one's a thud, like something being closed. It's so close as to be excruciating to talk about.
You got the womp with an O?
It's funny. This was such a traumatic thing that I don't know which was the correct one to this day. I know I spelled the other one than what they were expecting, and I lost that was my last chance for nationals, and I don't know for sure which one it was. I believe that they wanted womp, and I spelled womp. I don't know if my mom's watching this, but she'll probably remember and correct me.
Mom, if you're in the chat, let us know.
So for more of the origin story, then my first year exhibiting at the con, I had my first ever superhero cosplay. My friend Dave wore a bald cap, got some fake empty glasses, grew his beard out, just to cosplay as me. So that's him on the left, dressed as me as a hero, like convention art guy, right? But he's somebody that had been with me for some grown-up spelling bees at bars and stuff like that, and so he knew my darkest secret. He knew the womp story. And so this last year he had a new costume, and he decided to show up as my arch nemesis and he showed up as Dr. Womp. He's my bad guy.
That's incredible.
Part of what inspired the idea of making this hero. Like I said, plus just what's more unconventional than a tiny kid that can't run fast or jump high or do anything but spell words well. So from that, like, he's definitely going to be the actual bad guy if I ever get this into story form and graphic novel form. And this was so funny and so mean at the same time that I wanted to make sure he got some airplay.
Well, there's a lot of people sympathizing for you in the chat. They totally understand, and they're sharing their own terrifying spelling bee experiences. Also, your wife says hello. Hi, Stephanie.
Oh, good. She's probably making fun of me the loudest.
That's their job, right? That's the spouse's job.
And if I didn't have these headphones on, I would hear her laughing at me from upstairs right now. So my friends that worked on me with the idea, my squibby friends from my children's book group, asked if they could have their kids do some cloak poses for me to use as reference. So this is some of what I got back, are these fantastic homemade cloaks. And I was saying, hey, if you can throw something quick together with a blanket, and they were all like, oh, we have cloaks. Like every single one of them had at least a Hogwarts cloak or a full witch cloak or whatever.
I was gonna say, I'm pretty sure I wore one of these when I was 11 for Halloween.
Right. So yeah, this is what I got back for reference, which is all fantastic. I'm gonna be able to use that for lighting and things like that. And so I did a bunch of sketches for this is all since you guys asked me about the unconventional superhero. I've been trying to come up with what does the spellcaster look like, because I know that his power is going to be that he can conjure things out of thin air if he can spell them.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I have the idea of this crossword cloak that would, maybe show the word that he's spelling as he's spelling it. It's just a plain cloak until he starts using his power, and then it shows up with all the letters on it as he's spelling them. And so, if he gets distracted in mid conjure, he could create the wrong thing, and it could, like falling off a building and he's trying to spell trampoline and spells it wrong. It turns into something else, and you hit the ground. So you have to get yeah, exactly. Or parachute, and it turns into. I had some good ideas for this. I didn't write them down.
I mean, the opportunities are endless.
Right. And so I'll have Dr. Womp in there, like throwing my bad memories at me, and my villains would be throwing distractions at the little hero and things like that. So yeah, I had all that source material, and so we're almost up to what I actually want to work on. And let's make sure that screen changes. Okay. And so I was thinking about, for reference also, I have a bunch of little mannequins for drawing, and I have a child one. So I built a cloak for this guy so that I can do poses. So that's what I actually am going to end up using as my reference.
So I like that you're kind of explaining this, because I know for someone who like me, who is not a gifted artist, when I see crazy poses in a comic book or a piece of art, I'm always wondering how the artist puts that together. And so you're using an actual action figure here to give you kind of the position of the body. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And things like the way that shadow falls across the face is great, right? I'll set up things with lighting and staging. You'd be amazed at some of the stuff I had to set up for the children's book illustrations in grad school. Like I had dioramas, full-on dioramas, or you have people act stuff out and do real costumes. There are plenty of comic book artists that are well trained enough that they can draw their character in any pose. I'm a little bit more of a realistic artist anyway, and so I actually do depend on photo reference quite a bit. So I did this sketch last night based on this picture of the little figure. So this is going to be where I start, and I hope I didn't use up too much of the demo time. Yeah,
nah, this is your show, dude.
So I'm going to work from this loose sketch. And I'm going to try it with, this is Art Studio Pro on the iPad. I have lots and lots of friends that use and love Procreate also.
Mm-hmm.
The main reason I like this one is because it's closest to Photoshop, which is what I've been using for 20 years to paint in.
And once you know one software, it's relatively, would you say it's simple to kind of switch between softwares? Are the tools kind of similar, or what's been your experience there?
I would think if you came up on something like Corel Painter, like a real media, kind of a realistic, made for artists more than for designers, kind of a
Mm,
tool,
mm.
then something like Procreate's going to feel more natural. It feels more like you're taking real brushes out of a drawer and use them. This is more like a software, but that's just because I design for a living. I've been using Photoshop forever and ever on the Wacom tablets, and yeah, I think that you definitely a lot of the concepts will translate relatively well. It
Uh,
depends on how easily you get distracted by things being in a slightly different place. A brand new update just came out 2 days ago for this, and I don't know where anything is in this software. And you're going to
the
find out when
joys
I
of
start trying to click stuff that doesn't want to work.
Yeah, the joys of constantly updating software. Dion, who is actually one of our cast members for our comic show and one of our instructors as well, who's going to be teaching our Photoshop course, he says iPad is definitely going to be my next mobile device for arting. I like that verb, Dion.
It's crazy. I've been using the tablets that are disconnected where you're not drawing on the screen you're seeing, and then I ended up teaching on the big Wacom tablet where you're the Cintiq where you're drawing right on the image, and I got spoiled and I had to get one. And then I got a portable one of those, which was several $1,000s for a portable tablet. It was great, but it was heavy and battery didn't last very long. And the iPads are so good now, and the software is so good, and the Apple Pencil is insane. And this isn't. There's 2 new versions since the one I have.
Oh, okay.
I bought this one refurbished because I didn't know if I'd love it, but it turns out I don't use my fancy tablets much anymore because I can work at full. Like I'm working at 5,000 by 4,000 pixels on this thing right now.
Mm.
And it's plenty fast and keeping up. So, talking about method and things like that, I do when I traditionally sketch, I almost always work on a toned paper of one kind or another. I have a lot of tan sketchbooks. I will buy manila paper and bind my own sketchbooks out of them. It's a lot more common to be able to find like gray and tan books now. So I don't have to custom make them quite so often. But then I work in like Prismacolor with just not full color colored pencils, but I'm working with like a darker version of the color that the paper is, and then with white to be able to kind of pop highlights back out. And you guys will see how that works here digitally in a minute, because I tend to do the same thing even when it's going to be a full color painting. That's how I tend to start, so that I'm starting with medium value, and but then I can pull back and push forward both, right? It's a lot easier to get dimension. I probably made this. You guys can tell this is a blue background, right?
Yes.
It's probably lighter than I'm going to want it to be. We'll see how the white lays down on it. But if you see up here, like I always start with this value strip that I drag in and set to a luminosity layer mode, so that it's going to just give me variations of the same color that I started with. Because I'll start green, I'll start purple. It just depends on what I'm in the mood for, what feels right for that character, that sort of thing. I definitely don't like that I started with the character like looking straight at the viewer. So I want to redo the face, I think, as we're sketching this in here. And I want to have him looking toward where his hand is conjuring. So I've got that under sketch, but it was really just for layout and for concept. And I liked what the cloak did enough in the little mannequin picture that I want to actually use it and the shadows from it in the final.
In that mannequin, what material is that cloak made out of?
I cut a square out of an old white t-shirt.
Okay.
And it's so the awesome thing is at that size, it ended up being stiff enough that it looks like I've got wires in it to make it.
That was my question. Yes. How did you make it keep that shape?
It's still keeping that shape. And you saw me picking it up and showing it to you. It's thick enough fabric at that scale that it stands up on its own. Obviously it doesn't when you're wearing it. But yeah, it's just t-shirt fabric that's kind of making its own shape, and it's still there 2 days later.
That's crazy.
One of the ideas that I was having, I mean, I wear glasses in real life, and I have for a long time, but I had fantastic vision until I was about 8, and then it all went to hell, and I've had to wear these ever since. But one of the ideas was to try a reverse Clark Kent for this character. Like when he's in his secret identity, sixth grade or however old. Or the glasses aren't actually for vision, they're for who knows, like virtual reality or something. But yeah, so glasses are part of the disguise, not part of the secret identity.
You know, that's funny because when I was in about third grade, so about 9 years old, the reason my family found out that I needed glasses is because I would write our spelling words down incorrectly. Our teacher would write that week's spelling test words on the whiteboard and I'd bring them home and my mom would be like, "What is this? What are you writing down? Why can't you write it down right?" It's because I could not see. Come to find out.
Right? It's a hard thing to communicate when you're a kid.
I didn't know.
Right? All right. I want to switch to one of these new pencil tools that I'm experimenting with that came with this new version. Because this takes advantage of the tilt function. So I can draw real tight little pencil lines with this. But then laying it on its side a little bit, which I realize the camera's not showing you, but I have it tilted way over and it's letting me shade like a tilted graphite pencil. It's pretty cool.
So what I find interesting, because we're talking about developing unconventional superheroes, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you started with this character, you didn't necessarily start with the superpower or the look. You started with the backstory and you let the backstory kind of influence all of those things, like the cape and the look and the superpower. Is that how you approach most of your characters, or how do you do that?
I would say I usually have a story in mind first. It's hard to say. Like my robot children's book, the first version of it popped into my head while I was swimming laps one day, and I wrote a whole rhyming children's book in my head while I was swimming, and I have no short-term memory whatsoever. So I had to jump out of the pool, go find a piece of paper to write on, like running through the 24-hour fitness, asking people for a sheet of paper so I could write it down before it fell out of my brain. So that one, I really just kind of envisioned, this is too slow. Go back to a more comfortable tool. But then like the octopus book one, which is my favorite one that I really want to sell, it's absolutely a true story. And it just came from, the way that went down and what I wanted to do with that character. I can ramble about that if you like, or we can keep talking about technique stuff, but
yeah, why don't you give us a little bit more, as you're kind of finishing up, a little bit more about how you developed this character, maybe where the idea of the cape came from, or even how you would draw this character. And then in a couple of minutes, we'll move into where our audience can give you suggestions for creating a new character.
Crowdsourcing. Okay. Yeah, I'd like to be a lot farther along with this guy than I am. I'm glad I pre-sketched him so I didn't just end up with nothing during our stream. But yeah, so
I mean, it's the process.
A lot of this came about all in that first brainstorm session with my friends talking about it. Like, if I was going to make my little nerdy butt into a superhero, what would the power be? And spelling, like I have weird magic proofreading powers. I can walk behind somebody who's typing and not even read the text they're typing, and I'll see the typos. I don't understand it. It comes from the swaddling clothes of the planet I was born on, or something. Come on, dude. I'm trying to grab a light color to start from. So yeah, I mean, I was talking like, could it? Weird. Would it be like a spelling based, strength superhero? Could it be somebody who flies and spells? But then I don't know if it was me or one of my friends who said, what about if he casts spells? And then we had a bunch of funny ideas, like enough to make a graphic novel out of. Like I said, the misadventures of having stuff happen that you're trying to spell as you're falling off a building, things like that.
Now, is the spellcaster, because you mentioned that if he spells something incorrectly, he can't conjure it, right? So is the spellcaster innately a good speller, or is he using that ability to help him learn how to become a better speller?
I think he's innately a good speller. He studies it, and like I said, I want it to be a power that he already had. But then one day, I don't know if it's maybe the magic crossword cloak or whatever that unlocks the magic part of it. That's what he's having to learn. But it's turning out, like with practical use, being able to learn to do things under intense pressure would be a big part of it. Having to make up, like fighting crime against, like that big strong Dr. Wump jerk. fighting like powered superheroes without having any physical powers. You have to get creative and you have to get imaginative with something like that. Um, so yeah, I think most likely he would already be a spelling bee contestant and a big nerd and a bullied nerd for sure. I would want to do a lot about, you have a kid that becomes a hero, and you can't give away how powerful you've become to the kids at your school, but you also are gaining in confidence in the real world, and you're not gonna take it anymore. Um, so I envision that being a big part of that journey.
Definitely. Yeah, and discovering how this is an unconventional power. It's not like this is how you see people being helped on a day-to-day basis. So as the spellcaster learns more about how does his specific superpower fit into the world and make the world a better place, that's a cool journey.
Yeah, I mean it all started as a silly idea, just like what kind of funny thing could I demo for you guys, but just talking about it, there's a lot of potential I think for real stories. Like even if it's just to make the memory of 12-year-old me feel better. But I also know there's lots and lots of kids out there, that are same kind of thing, that are academically inclined and not physically inclined and
Mm-hmm.
deserve to have confidence too.
Yep.
There's also a lot of students. Hopefully, there's a lot of students looking in and watching your technique. I think it's important to say, you guys, you're working on Art Studio Pro for the iPad, but this doesn't require this kind of drawing and everything. This technique doesn't require special tools. You could just pick up a pencil and paper.
Absolutely. I'm specifically kind of trying to emulate the way that I work with colored pencils. Um, I have a stack of stuff sitting next to the computer that I've drawn on these scraps of cardboard in the little window that you can see. I work with the white pencil and stuff.
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
right on the cardboard. So yeah, it's the way that I sketch is based on the way I sketch on paper. You're absolutely right. It doesn't have to be high tech or expensive. Um, the way that I get into doing color stuff does get more high tech and expensive.
Mm-hmm.
Some of it's pretty elaborate, but I almost always start out like this, just like I would on with colored pencil on a toned paper.
Bruce, are you ready to take some audience suggestions?
We've already gotten a few. Let's start anew and do that.
Excellent. So, audience, if you are watching live, now is your opportunity to give us some ideas in the chat of a unique superhero that Dustin can draw for us. And Bruce is going to take those ideas and he's going to curate your ideas and put them into a package for Dustin to draw here. And while we get those ideas there, and while Dustin is finishing up, I'm going to tell you guys about a new program that we have going on at Pop Culture Classroom, which is our brand new boot camps. So the PopStream Workshop that you're watching right now is not the only opportunity for you to build new skills. Pop Culture Classroom, the educational nonprofit behind Denver Pop Culture Con, has opened registration for a new series of virtual boot camps. If you're looking to learn more about Photoshop, comic book creation, streaming, or Dungeons and Dragons, then this is your opportunity to learn from professionals and build some community. So classes will meet once per week for 5 weeks. And in addition to getting instruction from professionals, you'll also get curated courses, curated activities and resources to help reinforce the skills that you're learning in between classes. And you get to meet some really cool people while you're at it. So classes are for ages 16 and up, and there are a limited number of scholarships available. So make sure that if you would like to apply for a scholarship, you do that early. And because these boot camps are virtual, it doesn't matter where you live. The magic of the internet will let you participate from anywhere. So you can learn more about our boot camps at popcultureclassroom.org/camps. And once again, that is popcultureclassroom.org/camps. All right. I'm seeing some awesome stuff in the chat already. Bruce, what do we got?
Well, so far, Scott Pantal suggested the Invisible Man, but
I'm done.
That one's easy, right?
So for the second one, okay, Heather Brockman Lee says a unicorn that makes popcorn, flame tail, frying pan wings, corn comes off the corn and pops on the wings. This is from her 10-year-old. I love it.
That absolutely could have come from either of them, and it wouldn't have surprised me at all.
I don't know if you guys watched Lego Masters. It's on Hulu right now, but there was an episode where the kids suggested what the people would build out of Legos, and that sounds exactly like what we would have gotten.
Stan Yan and several other people have suggested, based on your life story, the Roboctopus or Octobot.
Okay. So yeah, we see Roboctopus, and then there's also a variation on that, which is Roboctomom, which would be. And maybe she has popcorn. Yeah, so we've got all these awesome ideas. So what do you think, Dustin, would make the most interesting superhero here?
Well, yeah, I love the idea of combining those ideas.
Yeah.
I want to do the robot octopus as quickly as we can, and it's going to have a unicorn horn too, just to make it make Emmy happy also.
Yes.
Okay. Let's just start making a mess.
Will the horn shoot out lasers or popcorn?
It depends if this is an actual like underwater octopus. Popcorn really gets soggy fast in my experience.
That is true.
Or at least in my face, it gets soggy real fast. I'm drawing my regular octopus. I was going to give him cool robot eyes, and I immediately started doing pupils. Yeah, we want to make these look like headlights of some kind. We'll have some auxiliary sensory organs and get that unicorn horn in there early so I don't forget.
Now, I want everyone watching to notice that when you're initially getting these ideas on paper, it doesn't have to be perfect, right? Dustin, you said, well, let's just slap some stuff down, right?
It's never been perfect on my first try.
Right.
Yeah, that's I've seen people do it. That's something that they've drawn before and have a lot of practice at, I think, usually.
Well, I think for a lot of people, especially younger people, if they are not comfortable with their drawing ability, that's what stops them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the feeling that like, oh, this is terrible. I can promise you I've drawn many tens of thousands of things, and every single one of them went through oh, this is gross, I hate this phase. Every single one. It gets ugly. You know, you start out with a great idea, and I've been working for a long time to get any good at this. When I was 30, I was a terrible artist. I mean, I'm finally done enough school and gotten better enough at this in my advanced age that I'm more confident. But yeah, it's always experimentation, and unless you already know what you're drawing, or you're, you know, if I'm drawing a specific portrait from a specific photo, for example, then it still goes through an ugly phase. Don't get me wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not necessarily trying to figure out the whole time what I'm going to end up with, right?
Yeah, Scott on YouTube says the only way to get better at any skill, whether it's drawing, writing, or programming, is to keep doing it. There's a misconception that art is an innate skill, and all artists are born great artists. And you might be born with some talent, but it's a skill you got to learn and practice, just like anything else.
I believe in that so thoroughly, and that's something that I was trying to get across in the earlier thing. I really didn't. All my talents were for things like reading and writing and math and stuff like that. I was bad at art. It's hard for me to even now to be good, other than I've got a lot of practice now. See what the audience thinks. Do these look too much like crab legs? Should I start over with something a little more tentacly?
I kind of like that. Yeah, so if you're an audio listener right now, so far we've got the robotic head, and you can kind of see the metallic lines on there. We do have the unicorn horn, which someone in the chat suggested maybe the unicorn is to keep the popcorn above the water so that it doesn't actually get soggy. I thought that was an interesting idea. Yeah.
Okay.
And then we've got 4 octopus tentacles so far, which of course are mechanical, because this is the robotic octopus, or the Roboctopus. I can't even say that now.
Keep trying.
Robotic.
Roboctopus.
I'm not helping you either.
What did I do? I turned my opacity all the way down by accident.
Someone says it's kind of a mix of crab, octopus, and unicorn.
Yeah.
That's Defender Null on Twitch.
So I figure it's going to be a little bit like Dr. Octopus, where these joints here can expand out into full tentacles, right? So this is
someone did suggest at least one ridiculously long tentacle, so that expanding part can definitely achieve that goal.
Whoever you are, I read your mind. Yeah, I think that they're going to be versatile, right? Octopus can do amazing things and have all kinds of superpowers, which is a big part of the book that I wrote that I'm trying to sell. Is about the amazing powers that they have for camouflage and being able to fit through crazy things.
Jesus Peaches in the chat, you got jokes. They say instead of popcorn, can you make the corn on the cob, but instead of the cob, it's a hot dog? That's why couldn't we just make it a hot dog? That also reminds me of the Rick and Morty episode where everything is on the cob and Rick just starts freaking out. Excellent stuff. So what do we think, and maybe the chat can help us out here, what do we think the backstory of now somebody's calling this crab octocorn? What do we think the backstory?
I'm sorry to whoever that was that I just took the crab legs away.
Oh no.
But only a little bit sorry, because I think we're going to be happier with what we get now.
It was starting to remind me of the Kevin Smith story about when he pitched to John Peters the his Superman script.
Yeah.
You guys know that?
Mm-mm.
And John Peters wanted the villain to have giant spider mechanical legs. And so Kevin Smith bowed out of that one, but John Peters finally got that for Wild Wild West.
I was about to say, I'm pretty sure I remember that from Wild Wild West. Yeah.
And that came out great. I've actually heard Kevin Smith tell part of that story, and that was going to be the one that had like Nicolas Cage attached to it as Kal-El, right? That's funny.
All right,
I've got a signed portrait of Kevin Smith that when I got to meet him also.
Oh man, that would be a treat. I saw he was interviewing Gerard Way about comics, and this was years ago, but I was like, man, just to be in that room.
Yeah, he's incredible. I was at spoken word at the Comedy Works here in Denver that I got to meet him. So we got to spend a few minutes really just chatting afterwards. And wow, these arms are all over the place. He doesn't look like a good guy. I think the Roboctopus might be a villain, or just misunderstood.
Yeah, so chat, you got to come through with some of the backstory. Has this character always been a robot? Did it go through an accident that turned it into a robot?
Was it an invisible man that then had an accident that turned him into a robot octopus?
There it is.
No, somebody's got something better than that.
Yeah, well, Jesus Peaches says, instead of the popcorn, can you make the corn on the cob? Make it corn on the cob, but instead of the cob, it's a hot dog.
That's a tall order.
You guys are obsessed with the food part of this, which I wasn't even planning on getting to, except for maybe a kernel of popcorn. But I may have to stop drawing legs and start drawing food.
I like this. This is good.
It's definitely feeling robot-y, isn't it?
Let's see. So if somebody, let's say the Spellcaster, came across this character, and this character had popcorn cobs as arms, perhaps the Spellcaster could summon a microwave.
Exactly.
To defeat this character.
I love it. And to be able to spell like Architeuthis, he could spell the Latin name for the giant squid to defeat the octopus with a much bigger cephalopod.
There's always a bigger fish.
That's right. There's always a bigger kaiju, right?
So Heather suggests maybe this character is made in a factory and put in a box, but then the truck bumped on a rock and the box fell into a river. He escapes the box and starts swimming around and learning the ways of sea life.
I love that.
And that's from The Daughter, it looks like. Then Stan suggests octopi are from space. The robot body originated as the space vessel, and when they arrived on Earth, they repurposed the spacecraft to be android servants.
So it was just kind of like a spacesuit almost. It was armor, but now they've put artificial intelligence into them and they're on the loose. I like it.
Space octopus keep coming up. This is only episode 2 in PopStream, and this is the second episode in a row that space octopus have come up, because of course in the Umbrella Academy, that's the opening panel of the first issue, and then we talked about how that related to Watchmen. So perhaps Ozymandias summoned this character, and then it was repurposed into an octopus when they discovered it could not live on Earth.
I like it.
It at least proves that they're in the same universe.
Right.
Yeah. Well, that means I'm probably going to get sued before this podcast. I accidentally stole intellectual property, or you guys stole it for me, and I'm naming everybody in the chat as co-defendants if that happens.
So, fun story about that. There's a video game coming out that was supposed to be called Gods and Monsters. Monster Energy gave them a cease and desist because they said they had the trademark on monster used in video games. And so that game, Gods and Monsters, is now called Phoenix Immortals Rising, which is a downgrade for sure. But
that makes me
Monster
sad.
Energy, right?
They better come out with a really cool game and make some use out of that trademark, and they're not just doing it for spite.
Right.
That's not cool.
I think they had a BMX, like Monster Energy BMX game, and then Death Stranding by Hideo Kojima, which was released earlier this year, last year, heavily featured Monster Energy product placement.
Okay. Well, at least that person probably got paid and didn't violate copyright.
So as we are finishing up, we've got about 4 or 5 more minutes. As we're finishing creating this character, what else is going through your mind as you're creating this unconventional superhero and or supervillain? What other things should we think about?
Well, I like the backstory stuff. I mean, definitely, we can definitely use him as a villain in the Spellcaster world. And it might be that once he figures out how to reprogram it, it wasn't a villain in the first place. It was just a misunderstood space octopus, artificial intelligent robot demon unicorn popcorn launcher. I encourage people to think about absurdity a lot, because that's what I do the whole time I'm drawing, is like, how silly is this thing that I'm trying to do right now?
And the other thing too is once again with your technique, want everybody to see that essentially you're drawing on blue paper, right. And instead of shadowing, you're highlighting with whiteness, which could be like liquid paper or something like that.
White color pencil, honestly, is my favorite superpower weapon or superhero weapon. Is the Prismacolor white color pencil. It covers everything. It'll even cover over ink if you're drawing in ink. It's fantastic. I think that's a great starting point for anybody who wants to. When I discovered it, it was almost like a cheat code for dimensionality, right? Like I would do life drawing, and then just with a little bit of that white on a toned paper, I could make it do things that I would have had to shade everything and erase back out with charcoal or something, right? Mm-hmm. It's my favorite shortcut, which is why I still use it on the computer. Got some bubbles alongside with the popcorn. And what was the hot dog thing? I might as well try it.
They suggested that, I believe they said, instead of popcorn, it's corn on the cob, but instead of the cob, it's a hot dog. So I think Jesus Peaches was suggesting that a hot dog in the middle, but covered in popcorn.
Corn on the dog.
Hey, there you go, Bruce.
So the unpopped kernels are a condiment on the hot dog, which we're going to make happen. And so these pieces of popcorn, rather than instead of, it's just before it becomes. This laser then can heat up the kernels. And they're sitting here on the bun on the hot dog, but then as you hit them with the laser, they can become huge kernels that become dangerous to our hero. So yeah, we're going to have a corn on the dog that then the unicorn laser can and I mean if the villain's really trying for like a boss battle evil, there also will be relish and stuff on the popcorn. It won't be pretty at all.
Some sauerkraut.
Yeah. Ugh.
Our friend Stan Yan says that the horn is for holding over the campfire.
Also, that horn is very multi-purpose at this point. I like it. And I kind of envision like the horn also transforms almost like a Inspector Gadget, Go-Go Gadget type thing.
It extends.
It's not like you don't have 8 infinitely extendable and prehensile arms already. You need that horn to
right. Yeah, that's
for the extra reach. Yeah.
Well, Dustin, as you're finishing this up, what would you like to promote? Where would you like to direct people to find your work?
That is a great question. The quickest place is probably just to go to dustinresch.com, because that's got links to both sites. I have a whole separate site for the portrait and superhero stuff, and then the Resch sketches for the children's book stuff. But you can get to all of it from dustinresch.com. and then I've got social media tags for both separately for everything. But yeah, I mean, follow my Instagram, my Twitter, and my Facebook, and I post this stuff up all of the time.
Excellent. And I am looking forward to the Resch canon, the Resch shared universe coming soon.
I don't know about how soon, but I'm going to be working on it.
I want to see more about Spellcaster and Octobot or whatever we decided.
Me too. I legitimately was thinking this was going to be really silly, but I'm falling in love with this villain. I think he's
like it.
great.
Hey, this is where the best ideas come from, is just pure silliness, just throwing things out.
Brainstorming with the crowd. It's wonderful.
Well, if you've been joining us live today, thank you guys so much for your ideas, for your feedback. And if you are listening after the fact, we hope that you are going to like and subscribe and share, whether you're on YouTube or whether you're finding us on a podcast service. We've got lots of awesome stuff coming from PopStream in the future. One of the things we do have coming is reader mail. We want to have as many opportunities as possible to interact with you guys. So if you have a question for the cast of any of our shows, if you want to share how one of our guests like Dustin helped or inspired your art creation that we can share on the show, you can do that at popstream@popcultureclassroom.org. And once again, that is popstream@popcultureclassroom.org. Drop us an email, say hi, and let us know what's going on. And hopefully we can feature you on the next show. And on next month's episode of the PopStream Workshop, because these are once monthly, we're going to have a cosplay demo just in time to get you guys an Instagram-worthy Halloween costume and talk you through the steps of how does one start a cosplay or a new costume from scratch. So like I said, we've got all kinds of awesome PopStream content coming at you soon. Next week, we've got the first episode of the PopStream AV Club. We'll be talking all about Amazon Prime's The Boys. Following that, we've got the PopStream Denver Pop Culture Con flashback, where we're talking about the science of Wakanda and showing that panel. Bruce, was that from last year's Denver Pop Culture Con 2019?
It was. Science of Wakanda.
Yes. Excellent. And then after that, we'll be starting the whole thing over again. So again, please subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Twitch, subscribe on podcast services to make sure you get all the latest content. And don't forget to check out our boot camps if you want to develop a few more skills at popcultureclassroom.org/camps. And then the last thing I will ask of you guys is that Pop Culture Classroom is a nonprofit located here in Denver. We're an educational nonprofit, and our whole mission is to increase literacy, inspire a love of learning, and celebrate diversity through pop culture. And whether that is workshops that we're doing here in the Denver area, boot camps that you can access from everywhere, educating people at Denver Pop Culture Con, or even creating resources for teachers all across the nation. Any donation you could give us would be extremely helpful. So on the screen, you should be able to see a donate link. And if you're listening to our audio only version, you can go to popcultureclassroom.org to find our donate link. Dustin, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for bringing your talents to our show.
It's been so much fun. I want to see everybody who's listening on audio. I want to see your version of what you think that this octopus thing looked like.
Yes.
Send it into the stream and let them share it.
Yeah, you can send your versions just from our descriptions. You can draw it out and send that to popstream@popcultureclassroom.org, or you can share it on social media at Pop Culture Classroom or Denver Pop Culture Con's Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. Bruce, thank you for joining us. We will see you in a couple weeks for the Denver Pop Culture Con flashback.
Thank you.
And everybody joining us and listening, thank you for being here. And until next time, this has been your PopStream, and we'll see you in a week. Y'all take care.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye.